right, welcome everybody to our Tuesday, April 7th Board of Education Budget Workshop number 3. Can I please have a motion to call the workshop to order? So moved, Michelle, second, Maria. All in favor? Aye, the four of us. Please stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Mr. Freeman.
Alrighty. Welcome to workshop number 3. I think the theme of this workshop is all about revenue, so let's jump right in. Gonna do some state budget updates. I want to break down our state aid categories a little bit more in depth for everybody. Take a very, 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 very early look at tax rate projections, and then look at some of our other revenues, and then, questions throughout, but please feel free to interject as we go along. So first up is foundation aid. So if you go left to right, I just want to do a couple quick comparisons. So 25-26 budget, that's our number, slightly over $48 million. But actually, we did a little bit better on foundation aid because, remember now we're on that cycle where the outputs really matter, like every November, every February, and every May. So our SAPE data changed throughout the year. So that's the small area income poverty measurements. So that kind of ticked us up a little bit. So we did a little bit better there. And so I have those as a comparison to what the governor has proposed for us. And what the governor proposed for us was really just the November output. So what the formula gave us, that's at the time what the governor gave us. So the Assembly and Senate, we don't have to wait for a state budget because no matter what, their projected increases are less than what the formula is going to give us. So that is our formula number at the 2.9% that we had an update in February on. So really, when it comes to foundation aid, we're rock solid on that number. We're above those hold harmless thresholds because that SAPE data is carrying into it. And so very comfortable moving forward with this being our number for next year.
Yeah, and I think just for the public too, just the 1% is currently what the hold harmless threshold is, the floor. And really the only thing that we've heard is it might go to 2%, but they're already giving us 2.9, so it won't do anything to us. It won't add another percentage to us at all. It just keeps us at 2.9, like Brian said.
Right. We're in that 30% of districts that the formula is working for this year, you can say.
A little.
We budgeted based on the 48,089,480, but we got 48,496. What happens to that?
So it just
Extra.
mixes into the pot, like, when we close the books at the end of this year, it'd be like, we did a little bit better on state aid by, $400,000. And so, it just,
It gets spent, but
it could get spent. It could go towards offsetting that $3 million
I
in
was
reserves.
just going to say, remember,
Yes,
we
that
actually
we're-
used $3 million from reserves. So in one way, you can almost say, well, maybe we technically almost look at it like we used $2.6 million instead
gotcha.
of the 3.0 because we still had to come back up with that much.
Right, and when we close the books with the auditors at the end of the year, depending on how we did, we have a very long and lengthy conversation with the auditors about where's best to put money or how to push it forward.
okay.
All right. So some state budget updates. I don't go anywhere for spring break because I love to sit around budget time to see where the budget's at. This one's going to probably take as long as negotiating the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, if any of our history majors out there. I kind of enjoy history, so threw that one out there for you guys. So our budget deadline clearly is missed. Where's the budget? Everything is pointing towards at least another week to 2 weeks. Couple wrenches thrown in there with some Tier 6 policy discussions now, a lot of other things holding up, some last-minute items, one of which is the EV bus is getting wrapped up into that larger kind of 2019 legislation of pushing some of those other dates back as well, as far as turning over, natural gas connections into buildings and construction with green energy. So it's kind of getting wrapped up in all of that. There is one promising item out of that, though, that one of the proposals is to create an exemption for any school district that is within 10 miles of a nuclear power plant,
Yeah, which is us.
which would be the Webster Central School District. So we'll see if that makes its way through to the final, because if the power plant's going down, the buses are worthless. You're not evacuating anybody.
Which was a question that we had
Yeah.
at our
Correct.
early meetings.
I think
was
we have
what if. That's interesting.
Scream that one to everybody that we've
Yeah.
met with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, it worked.
It
That was
does.
the meeting at MCC that you, I think, or someone
Yes.
from us actually, was it you?
Yes.
That asked the question directly to him saying, we have to also have an evacuation plan because we are within
Yeah,
a certain
10
number of
miles.
miles to Gannett. And what would we do then if that was the case? So I think that we,
But see, the politicians had left that conversation at
They
that
must
have
time,
heard it.
so they didn't hear that. That's my friend.
I was thinking a whole different. I thought
Yeah.
nuclear is clean. You give us a bonus points because
oh, right. The other thing I heard today that's kind of continuing to be somewhat debated, I think, and we'll see how it lands in the final bill or in the final budget language of the bills, is seeker. And so some of the different stuff that's going on with the proposals around seeker and trying to speed some of that up with the DEC and whatnot. So I just heard that was today. And again, just like Brian said, what I heard today is they are projecting a mid-April budget is what they think. Part of it is because in New York State, they do not continue to get paid while they don't have a budget. Different than the federal government. And I just learned that today.
you mean
So
the
the-
senators and legislators
Yep.
don't get paid?
Our legislators and senators right now are not getting paid for their positions in Albany until they have a budget.
Oh, it's
So
a nice incentive.
I didn't know that. Just learned it. So,
So let's break down the expense-based aids. So just an overview on these. It's all based on 25-26 enrollment and/or 25-26 expenditures when we go to report this in 2026. So when we talk legislative projections, there's no formula changes on the horizon. So it's really us just doing our best estimates of where we're going to be across all of these. And just like to, state aid does make up 33% of all of our revenue. So first one up is transportation. Our aid ratio is going down next year from 68.5% to 67.7%. So final aid is based on June 30th, 2026 expenditures that we report in fall. So we are projecting to have an increase in expenditures when we close the books June 30th. That will make up for the lower aid ratio difference to maintain the same budget. So our final budget is 7.1 million for transportation aid is the same as this year. The governor's estimate we talked about in February, remember, is always extremely high because that's based on September data, and it's assuming that every single dollar we budget in transportation gets spent, and that's not the case. Questions on transportation aid? All right. BOCES aid, slightly different. Our aid ratio is a smaller reduction here, still a little bit above 63%. This is also based on those final expenditures that we report. BOCES expenditures are trending to finish the year higher, especially on the technology side. So this will kind of even out. That aid going down, expense going up, we're going to stay the same. However, there was one change, I don't know if you remember last year that the state passed in BOCES aidable salaries. So it's a way to recruit people into CTE and other things. They're stepping the salaries that are aidable from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 over a 3-year period. So that's actually going to drive some more aid for us. And so when we looked at those numbers with our friends at BOCES, say, okay, what is the true impact? Because they're the ones that have the data. It's BOCES employees, BOCES salaries. We can't really do that because it's an internal BOCES thing. So they provided some data for us to say, okay, this is the impact of that legislative change, which will come through next year. So we're projecting an increase of about $150,000 more in BOCES aid over this year. Because of, you think of all the CTE kids that we send, all those salaries, any salaries for any services, like technology support, their salaries baked in there, all those, their threshold for aid goes up, which makes more aid for all the districts.
So this year, we're in the 40,000 year, and next year will be the 50,000 year. Is that accurate, Brad?
Correct. So this is the 40,000,
Yep.
which this is the expense year, which we're springboards the aid for next year. Next year, as we spend, it goes to the 50.
Okay.
So we'll probably see another,
And then the 60
I'd
is
say,
the last year.
I would assume we're going to see another BOCES bump, but we don't know what that aid ratio is going to do. So that's why I'm,
Yeah.
cautiously saying, yeah, probably get a few more dollars over the next couple of years as that transitions over.
Okay, thanks.
Building aid is the most wildly inaccurate from the governors. This is based solely on final cost submissions. So the governor's projections based on October 15th, 2025 data. But the final state aid that we're going to get for 26-27 goes right up to the last day of 26-27. So our aid is paid off of those final cost reports. So if we get one in on June 29th, 2027, it counts for the 26-27 school year for aid. How does that work? Do they send us a check on June 30th? No. We get it the next year, and we have to do some fun accounting to count it for the 26-27 year. So we have 15 more months to project, and so we know there's going to be a lot more construction, a lot more reports done, so you could see the large difference between the governor and what we're finalizing, almost a full $2 million. Questions on building aid, which is the most probably complicated of all the expense aids. Our excess cost aid going to stay stable. Our aid ratios are dropping slightly, but not enough to cause any changes in the budget. Our expenses are staying relatively stable. And just so public access costs, that's extra aid we get for students enrolled in BOCES, or our in-house programs, and private excess cost aid is for students enrolled at specialized programs. These are two of the easier formulas, so I screenshotted them. It's total cost of the kids in these programs times that ratio. And you can see this is wealth-based. That CWR is combined wealth ratio. So depending on how wealthy you are, multiplied by those flat percentages, tells you how much aid you're going to get. So as the CWR fluctuates, ours is going from 90%, 0.900 to 0.906. Very small change upwards, really negligible effect on our aid. So this one's the closest.
Do you have an example of an in-house program? Is it like a?
OWL,
Okay, gotcha.
something like that was probably the best.
And let me go back to that building aid question really quick. That's typical though, right? This is almost
Oh,
every
yeah.
year that
Every
it's a
year.
million or two off
Yep.
from the governor's run, right?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
And then instructional materials aid, that's textbook, library, hardware, and software. So you could see how much we get per student for each one of those categories. We're fairly accurate with our enrollment. This is really just all enrollment driven. There is still a proposal in the Senate to raise the library from $625 to $1133. That was proposed last year too. Didn't grow legs and make it across the finish line. So not sure if it'll be in there, but we spend way more than what we get in aid when it comes to library. So no impact on us budgetarily if that does go through. So here's our final numbers, like the 3-year look back. So you see those areas, the foundation aid, the BOCES aid increase, and the building aid that we talked about. I have highlighted universal pre-K because, one of the questions is, I thought UPK changes were a good thing. We're getting less money. Well, how are we getting less money? So I thought I'd take a minute and kind of break down that math for everybody on the UPK side. So 25-26, our funding right now is $5,400 a kid, and that is based on a maximum allocation of 378 full-day kids, 127 half-day kids for a total of 505. But due to the great work by Mrs. Balsamo and her leadership of the program, we got a secondary grant funding where we actually did get $10,000 per kid for 120 kids. So that's a lot of kids. Okay? Not all of those kids are real. So that total funding for 25-26 is a maximum amount if we had all those kids. Who do we really have? Now transition to how the program's going to run in 26-27. We really only have 297 full-time kids. We only have 33 half-day kids. So that's a total of 330, significantly less than what the maximum student count is. This was a fun way the state said, oh, look at how much we're putting to UPK for all the districts, knowing full well none of those districts were going to ever touch that total amount of money. But 26-27, those are real kids because now it's based on real enrollment data times the 10,000. So 3.135 million is real, 3,584,100 is not real. So
let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, in the 26-27 column, oh, sorry.
those students don't exist, yeah.
Yeah. So first, to the 26-27, those are our numbers this year, right?
They're actually 24-25 numbers.
Okay.
So when the proposal came out, they're running it
They
off
were running off of
what
those.
we reported in 24-25. We don't know because it's not finalized
Yep.
if that's going to update to 25-26 for 26-27 because they have that data. We report that continuously. But as it's locked in now, maybe it's going to be on a delay like that going forward, where it's
Or maybe it'll be live.
or maybe it'll be live,
So there's a chance that it could be live,
which would
which would bump that number up even more.
correct. I think right now we've run the projections and it adds an extra $400,000.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. So
But can't count on it.
let's pretend, though, in a district, let's say that we only had 2 kids that in full day and 3 kids in half day. That number would still be the same as far as the funding goes because you said that it's actually proposed funding, even if we don't use it.
Right, in 25-26.
In 25-26.
Correct.
Right, that's what you're saying. Right.
Which is this year, but for budget purposes, it's last year.
Exactly. Does that make sense?
Where did the
It's the
378?
max number they would give us, but
Oh,
we're not
that's the
using it all.
max.
Correct.
Because we don't have that many kids.
We don't even have that many kids.
Okay, so the 505 was what the state projected,
That's how much they just said they're funding us for.
and it's based on, I don't know.
Just a calculation that they've come up
Yeah,
with.
okay.
Of enrollment in the past.
Yeah.
of
In the,
kindergarten,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha, okay. And they would pay us even if we didn't have those kids?
No.
No,
That's the catch.
ah,
So we're not really getting 3.5
gotcha.
this year.
We get a little over 2 million.
A little over 2. Yeah.
Okay, so it's based on reality, but they budget it
But they
for-
show that it's
Yeah.
significantly more.
Right, okay.
So like, that's why I like to show that comparison. And every output print report that you will see for 25-26 will show that number, which is, just overly inflated.
So so technically we are getting more money?
We should be.
Yes.
It's a way to saying we
Yes.
are getting more money
Yeah,
because it's real now.
Right,
right.
Fake dollars on the left, real dollars on the right.
Yeah.
Good questions. So those are 3 increases on the state aid side. Foundation aid is 62% of it. That BOCES aid is 5, and building aid is 33. Just to kind of visualize those 3.
Hey, before we go back too, I just also want to make sure everybody knows that that's grant money. Right, UPK is grant money. I just, again,
this is not-
everything we just did is all the grant. Now, could that change going forward?
Right. Right now, we're
Maybe.
still treating it as a grant, but they could just make it a funding stream where underneath foundation aid, we have UPK aid. But
And you don't
this,
have to do anything.
we
to-
don't know how the
You don't have
final,
to apply for a grant to
Yeah.
get it, right?
correct.
Right, correct.
Yes.
And it would be similar to, you got, these are the number of kids that you have in the kindergarten seats, this is how much
What you
money you're
get,
getting,
right.
or kindergarten
Yeah.
through 12th grade.
Yeah.
We potentially are hoping, I guess, more than thinking, that that would be a great thing for them to do it the same way.
And we learned that the hard way a couple years ago when that first escalator came out and said, oh my God, we're getting all this extra money. So when we did the paperwork in July to submit for the grant, we submitted for the full amount. We created a program and budgeted for that full amount coming through because we're like, they weren't clear. In December, after, we've already had the kids for 4 months, they said, yeah, not so fast. You're not getting all of what you just submitted. So that was a mid-year change for us where we weren't going to lay off a bunch of UPK staff.
Because you had some,
So we had to eat that funding as part of the general fund and part of our, contingency funding because, I won't say they changed it on us, but
Clear.
I think they finally got around to coming up with how are we going to interpret this and do this. We saw it as, yeah, we're going to get 3.5 million. Let's go grab all of it and file the paperwork for it. But then once it finally got approved, we're like, oh, no, you're way
you had
short
fixed
of
costs that
500
you couldn't
kids.
go back on.
So we're not going to give you money for 500 kids when you don't have 500 kids.
Right.
Good questions. Tax levy. So, no updates from our February presentation that is linked online. Tax revenue makes up 58% of the district revenue. So, it's early, but we always like to do some projected tax rates of what's happening. Let's see which towns got movement going left and right. But first, the average Monroe County tax levy limit was 318. We are slightly above that, so you can see the fluctuations. I data mine this from everybody's websites of what their tax levy limits are. It's all public documents, so I put the districts to it just so you could see the fluctuations around the county with how unique this formula is to every district. And I always like to show this because everybody thinks 2% cap, 2% cap. 2% is not 2%. You actually see some districts that are below 2%, based on how uniquely the formula works for all the districts. All right, taxes, a little refresher from the summer workshop. We got our three major components. We have assessment, which is controlled by our local assessors. We have the equalization rates, which are controlled by the state. And then the tax levy is controlled by the district. So we have three parts blending into the tax rates as kind of a big overview. All right, here's our projected data points. This is where the fun really gets going on this projection. So our levy is there, that the 339 increase. Every year we get a bunch of re-levies. A district our size, we have a lot of fluctuation, a lot of people changing properties, changing hands, things get lost in the shuffle, things get changed, estates move from deceased to relatives. So we have to take that pot every June we get it and reduce our levy when we calculate the taxes in August. So those are what we call the re-levies. So what our levy is gets reduced. And so usually it's around $75,000 total. So that's the first projection that I have to do to change the levy to calculate. The next fun part is looking at preliminary equalization rates. So in the right-hand column is 25-26. The new numbers are to the left. So Webster is moving 48 to 43. So it's a 5% drop. That's a pretty decent drop, which has a great impact. Penfield, for those of you that live in the Penfield side of town, remember it's so long ago now that Penfield did their reassessment. So they were at 100% for, I think, 30 seconds. And, and so next year projecting to be at 68%. So that's a 7% drop. Last year was a 12% drop. So that's also a large impact. But because Webster's dropping 5, it kind of mitigates the 7 from Penfield because Webster is a much larger portion of the district. And then our friends from Ontario and Walworth are actually staying the same. So they did not drop any further. They're projected to stay 72 and 70. So these are very preliminary. State has up until August to change them. So those are the numbers I inputted for this projection. And then the assessments, looking mathematically, Webster has been pretty consistent on their 10-year average about being around a 1% increase in assessment. So using that number, because Penfield, Ontario, and Walworth have extreme swings, Ontario because of the size of it is with the, inside of the district. So somebody builds a barn that gets reassessed or a garage or puts an addition on, that could be an 8% increase for Ontario because there's not as many properties. When you think about it in its totality, it's a very small portion of the district. Walworth, to a lesser extent, also has those fluctuations, but those three really in the last 10 years have had a couple reavails. And so they've done this on assessments a little bit. So I've tried to smooth those out to be a little bit more mathematically realistic. So we went with 25-year median for those three towns. Because if we did 10-year average, that would be very volatile. Penfield, it's going to be like in the teens, and that's not going to happen next year. So try to get something a little bit more predictable or a little bit more useful and closer to what I think will actually happen. So those are our three parts: equalization, levy, and assessments. Okay? Questions on that? All right. So you put those three data points in, and this is what happens. Penfield, about a 1% increase. Webster, slightly over 2. That 5% drop down really is a big impact. And with only about a 1% assessment growth, it mitigates it a little bit, but not too much. And you can see our friends in Ontario and Walworth are the big winners with a significant drop in their tax rates. Unfortunately, they also have to live the roller coaster life because the size of Ontario and Walworth, they're very, very, what's the word I'm looking for, impacted by changes to Webster and Penfield because of that. So they stayed flat, but because those equalization rates in Penfield and Webster changed significantly, they're like, great, we're going to get a tax rate reduction because of that. And as always, guarantee these will change in August when we sit here and look at those once we get the final numbers. Questions on that? But our levy limit stayed the same, no changes to that. The other 9%, let's take of our revenue. So sales tax projected to remain stable. Have not seen much variation in the last several years with that. We did increase this budget in 22-23. We increased it northwards. A lot of that had to do with the finally realizing a lot of online sales tax collection. But you really got to take, if we ever want to adjust this budget, it impacts our tax levy. We're one of the few districts that has to rebalance our tax levy when it comes to sales tax collection. And so if we increase the budget from where it is now, we then have to take that and put it into the formula for tax warrant. So something to be mindful of. Our pilots payments in lieu of taxes, that's going to decrease. We have pilots that are scheduled to come off the books with no additional pilot programs projected in the coming year. So we're losing some pilot money there, which, catch-22, less pilots, Not as many economic developments, but that also means anything that's happening is going right on the tax rolls. Interest is a tough one. It's the most volatile of all of our budgeted revenues because rates can change 4 times during one fiscal year for us. So it leaves us very little room to make market conditions. So we can't say, oh, the Fed just dropped a rate. Let's drop this budget. It's March, April. Can't do that. So we are going to reduce this budget as interest rates are coming back down, you'll see, because of that volatility. Reserves. The budget still requires significant reserve usage, so we're allocating another $3 million as a revenue source. We are utilizing those ERS and TRS reserve funds, so the budget amount is about 6.44% of our total audited reserves when we closed the books at the end of last year. So that's how much $3 million is to us. We're still appropriating the same amount of fund balance, the 5.5 million. We're remaining true to that. That's same level to reduce the tax levy. That was what this was originally set up to do several years ago. And then all our facilities usage revenues, rebates, continuing ed, projected to remain budget neutral. Okay. So what do those numbers look like? So you can see the sales tax staying flat, our foundation aid and expense-based aids going up, instructional materials aid staying the same, facilities rental staying the same. See the interest coming down. We had lived the good life with interest rates for a year there, but have to readjust that. Those pilots coming down by $150,000. The miscellaneous revenues that just all those hodgepodge of things staying neutral. And then I've highlighted the ERS, TRS, and the appropriated fund balance. I want to break that down a little bit further for everybody as well of where that comes from and how does it work, little tutorial. So if you add those two, the 5.5 and the 3 million, we get 8.5 in appropriated fund balance and reserves. Our goal is to replenish that every year, and savings or extra revenue. So that $400,000 in foundation aid is, we're just trying to, hold on to as many of those reserves as possible with the extra revenue. So our two sources total together gives us 3.74. So how does fund balance work? How does appropriated fund balance work? So could do a little step-by-step exercise here. So say we have an imaginary school district budget 25-26, $100 million, the revenue is $100 million, budget's closed for 25-26. And using some very easy numbers. But as 25-26 actually happens, this district only spent 97%. So they were $3 million to the good on the budget side. And they had a few extra revenues that were good for $3 million. So remember, as we're planning the budget, this fiscal year is still going. So 25-26 looking like a good year for this district. They're coming out with a surplus of $6 million, spending $3 million less and making $3 million more. So 26-27 planning's going on. Like, all right, I need $104 million, 4% increase over 25-26. And I'm only getting 2% on revenue to go to 102. So I have a budget shortfall of $2 million. So the way you appropriate funds is, all right, I'm going to take $2 million and appropriate fund balance. Well, where does that come from? The budget is now balanced because we took $6 million of that good from that previous fiscal year and said, okay, now we're only going to be good to the $4 million side, and we're locking in $2 million to close that budget gap for 26-27. That is the cycle and concept of appropriated fund balance, of where that money comes from. So now, if you go 26-27, 27-28, that 2, it's there. You got to try to do everything you can to hold on to it. Otherwise, you have another $2 million hole when you're trying to get to 0 every year. It's a different concept. It's unique because it's not profit loss. It's fun municipal accounting. Questions on that? All right, so county fund balance usage as a percent, this is, the highest is at 6%. When we combine them, as a percentage of going into next year is 4.39. The average is 2.75, so you see almost every Monroe County district is applying fund balance going into next year. If you remember our two outliers on the left-hand side, if we remember from a previous workshop, there are our two outliers because they are also getting the largest foundation aid increases in the county. So more foundation aid, less need for reserves. So just I thought that was a little interesting comparison. And then any updates since workshop 2? Nothing. Our budget has been nothing as we've worked through the process. And then I tried to make this graph over the past couple days because I want to compare really what our budget simplified looks like to our revenue simplified for one particular reason only. I had this image in my head and Google was preventing me from trying to create the best graphic I could, but I'm going to do my best here. I want to compare the blue bars and show you, in essence, they negate each other. So we really get money from two spots: tax levy, state aid increases. The left-hand side, the blue, that's our benefits. The right-hand side, the blue, is our tax levy. They're almost identical. Our entire tax levy is going towards paying benefits.
The additional benefits.
The additional benefits. So you take those out, then what do we have room to do? All right, our debt service is in the red. That's our building aid. It's a wash. Those cancel each other out. So the foundation aid, what's that left to pay for? And so that's kind of the formula. I was trying to think of a visual way to show really, how
Who's paying for what?
they're paying for each other as we go through. And you can see there's limited of what you can do, and that's why that instructional area is small, the transportation area is small. The central services, that's BOCES, our admin costs there, along with buildings and grounds. So I tried to visualize. The main takeaway is when we have 10% in Medicare increases on healthcare, we can expect going forward that's going to wipe out our entire tax levy. So what's left over on state aid or anything else we can do, if we could keep saving a few bucks every year to keep that $3 million to help as a buffer, that's what we'll try to do. But I think this is a strong visual of how, and it's just not us. You could put this visual up for a lot of districts, but I think that's,
Has this changed throughout the years? I'm
Oh, yeah.
assuming that blue was not that much.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the second year it's looked like that
Oh, wow.
for us. Prior
Yeah.
to that, there was 3 years in a row that we were getting more additional foundation aid to make us whole in the foundation aid formula, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's when we got the foundation aid, you saw the instructional expenditures go up.
Because we have no money.
Right.
Yep.
So we do have a balanced budget. Revenues and expenditures are matching. Just to compare, these are not finalized yet across the county. We do have one district that is actually dropping their budget. That has more to do with debt service coming off. We're at 3.1. The average budget increase is 471 countywide right now. Like I said, not everybody's adopted a budget, so I've left the districts nameless because they still have a couple weeks to make changes. The highest increase percentage is 863. So the blue bars is dollars, the red lines are the percent increases. So just as a reference, there's a lot of, I would say volatility, but difference amongst the districts this year. Next up, our budget talk series returns in a couple days. We're excited about that. Roll that out to the staff. Budget adoption is next week. Those budget materials will get out there May 1st. Budget hearing on May 5th, and then our budget vote is May 19th. And then just gonna do a shameless plug for our new website. So we've put some work into it to try to make it more user-friendly and really call out documents rather than have them archived down below. So these are all bubbles that you could click on and get all the presentations. Like if we click on our workshops, they're all right there. Workshop number 2, 3 will get linked there. And it goes right to the video plus the presentation. And then all the documents as they're coming through. So our budget documents, and once our newsletter gets finalized, that'll be linked here as well. Versus, I don't know if you remember in the old version, it was kind of just you had to sort through the documents at the bottom. We're just trying to call them out a little bit more with this new kind of formatting that I think hopefully will be user-friendly for people.
That's great.
All right. With that, any other questions or anything you'd like me to review?
How will if the changes for tier 6 go through, how would that impact that benefit section?
Yeah.
Too, I think, right? It depends on what they end up approving. And
Yeah.
if there's a series of steps, you know, is it a 4 or 5 year on year ramp type of thing? We don't know those answers yet.
Yeah, I mean, we could assume, I mean, the ERS, the New York State retirement system, is obviously, this is the largest spread between the two systems that we've seen in 30 years. They're not shy about going higher. I would imagine that's going to go into the 20s from the 17.6. If it drops down to comparable to what Tier 4 is. And then TRS would have to go up as well from their mid-8 to, I would imagine, double digits. Some of the early projections I've seen of what the cost breakdown is. The state has, I mean, every state employee is a member of ERS, so every state agency's got to kick in, so that's going to hit the state budget just as hard as well. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how that, you know,
Flows down.
goes. Yeah, if the state's going to pick up part of the tab and say, yeah, we'll do this, and we'll pay for, you know,
The difference.
a half of it for X amount of years, or who knows what could possibly be negotiated. But it would have, the actuaries would have a fun time coming up with new projection numbers for us.
That's why I think it's going to be more stepped into it. I
Gradual.
mean, what we saw with, I guess, like going off of our foundation aid experience, right? They did all this work and they had all these recommendations, and at the end of the day, they took 2 last year. And any this year?
No.
Really? Nothing yet that we're aware of anyways, right? So could they come up with, okay, here's 7 recommendations that we're going to do, and we're going to take one, or we're not sure we can afford one yet,
Forward,
but
it's the
maybe they
40,
could,
Yeah.
you know, put some of those things out there. I don't know, we'll see. We're only aware of one district in the area that's going over to cap, looking to go over to cap, I think. Is there more than one? Are you
Just
aware?
one is that I'm aware of right now.
Yeah, and they're not going over by a ton, but they're trying to go over in order to close the gap. I mean, again, we're running into the same thing that other districts are running into, and so.
Like for us at Water Reserves, this isn't, I mean, we can't keep throwing $3 million in to close that. I mean, eventually, right? I mean, there's,
Well, I Could I keep it going? Yes, I'm going to be very unpopular amongst some of my friends around the table. With the,
We don't want to,
with-
I know.
Yeah, with the amount of no's that we dish out. It really just, it hampers our ability to reinvest in stuff.
Right.
And some programmings, because it's like, you know,
Right.
so. A lot more, I hate that because it makes our spending a little bit more reactive towards the end of the year.
Right.
To be like, all right, I got it all. Here you go.
Yeah, here's extra.
What can we do? Which is what I've fought hard to kind of get us away from
Right.
for years.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna have to move at this. This won't be a one-year fix either.
Right.
This will be a planned type of thing, and I think what we said last year, we were pretty strong about using the concept of attrition,
Right.
which many districts in the area are doing as well this year. Some didn't have to do it last year as much as we did. But we did say last year that it's really a 3-year.
Yep.
So I think if we get through those 3 years-ish, and then we'll see where we're at to see whether we can attack this or not, and then we'll go from there. But a lot of it will be enrollment driven, as to determining as to how much our enrollment continues to go down. So we'll have to continue to make those decisions, but good question, Linda. It's the question that we are
Right,
constantly
it's-
talking about.
It gives you that
yeah,
angst,
it does.
right?
Yep.
Because you look at what the auditors are, you should be saving. and-
Yeah, you're right.
And we really are up against a rock and a hard place.
But we're a people business, and we're trying to
Right.
do everything we as much as we possibly can. With this as our strategy right now, and if it needs to, veer and we need a different strategy come next year because they give us a ton less money, then we'll have to figure it out at that point. So, but we'll see. That's why I think advocacy is really important.
Right, we
I
have
mean,
to.
everybody around this table has been part of the advocacy efforts. That I'm grateful that, again, that we are, sitting at the 2.9%.
Right.
Could we use more? Yeah, but that's what we're getting, so.
Is there any thought, is our healthcare consortium looking at different, sorry, am I?
No, this is good because
I'm
we're
just
talking to the person that's gonna head the committee.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious, like, because those are astronomical, if you look at the percentage of increase every year, so obviously, maybe we need to look,
Well, there was some good news today.
Was there?
Because the feds just released what the 27 Medicare reimbursements are going to be. And they were barely like 0.5%. And they're going to be over 2, almost 3. So that'll help
okay.
on that side, but remains to be seen.
Good question.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah, I
curious.
mean, that's wherever you go too. It was brought up at the Chamber of
Right.
Commerce meeting today, Rochester Chamber of Commerce. It's a big deal
Right,
for everybody,
right.
so.
So that, I mean, when we went into the consortium, it was touted as this is the answer, because it's gonna be self-funded, and it's gonna make money, and it did well for a few years, and then, I mean, obviously, the costs outpaced it.
Yeah,
Now
I think
we're in-
that's it. I was talking to a neighboring superintendent from a different BOCES today, and he said that in their area, their consortium was something that they were taking great pride in and had been doing really well, and this year they're up 12% in their consortium as well. So it's across the
common,
board, yeah.
I think the number one thing that's changed is for when the consortium started, something like, oh, I got an achy knee. Here's 2 Advil and an icy hot versus here's a $50,000 knee surgery to get it replaced.
Right, and that's what they said, is
That's,
the elective
You know.
surgeries,
you can't,
yeah.
there's, it's great. Well, my pickleball career is taken off. But there's a
Dave's excited about that.
claims, from a healthcare side,
Right.
that's a huge claims difference.
Right.
Of pain tolerance and management versus, again, that works so great. Let me get my shoulder done now.
Right.
So there's that medical, which is great for life and, longevity and length and all the advancements we've made, but there's a direct correlation to the claims expenses. going through the roof. And the same thing is true on the prescription drug side versus, you know, the medical side. Well, I don't have to go for a walk. I could just pop some Wegovy. Okay, you know. Great.
Yeah,
So, but that, I mean, that's a,
that's the reality.
that's a, you
But
know,
that's a-
$1,000 worth of pills.
Right.
Versus, you know.
Right. Yeah. Which, yeah, no,
I just use that one because it's literally like the top 2 prescription drug now.
right,
Yeah.
it's crazy, right. So our healthcare has to change.
Yep.
Anyhow.
Healthcare is actually still growing.
Correct, yes, yeah. But thank you for answering. I appreciate it.
Anything else?
I think I'm good.
Well, Carol's not here, so I need a motion to
know.
adjourn the meeting.
I was
don't know
trying
what
to
to
ask
do.
Carol. I was trying to ask Carol
A Carol
questions
question,
today.
you
That's what
were?
I was trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I hope she hears this. And it was all for you, Carol.
She's motioning from wherever she is, but I really do, so somebody motion. A second, a second, thank you, all in favor? Aye, thank you, have a good night.
Have a great night.